I have the incredible Mel Tucker with us. He is the head coach today at Michigan State University, a former football player, a Buckeye from Cleveland, Ohio, University of Colorado's former head coach, interim head coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars as well. Welcome to the Playbook, Mel.
Hey, Dave, thanks for having me.
Well, I love your journey. First of all, I love anyone from Ohio because it's a great place to be from. And there's, a work ethic. People ask me, Dave, how have you attained the success that you have? I said, because I'm consistent and persistent in the pursuit of my potential. My grandfather sold tires out of the back of the truck 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, and he wasn't anything special in Ohio. Everybody had that mindset of you go to work and you do your best, you learn lessons, you have fun, and you go back to work, do your best, learn lessons, and have fun. It wasn't difficult coming from that part of the world. What were some of the lessons that you learned about work ethic, and then how have you applied that to instill that into a generation that may not have the same perspective of discipline and work ethic that we had growing up in Ohio in the 70s?
Yeah, no, thank you for that. So I've always been taught that it's all about the work that you put into something, and my parents taught me that. My dad was a tireless worker. I saw him, get up early and go to work, and I saw him stay late. And I was the only child for 8 years, and so I spent a lot of time with my parents, and so I saw the work ethic from them, and in their friends, people that they were with, whether they were school teachers or they worked at the steel mill or whatever it was all about the work. And anytime that I wanted money, extra money, just to buy a pizza or to grab a pair of shoes or something like that, it was all about go get a job. Go get a job. I mean, I had a paper route when I was younger, and always had jobs when I was in high school. Always had jobs, whether it was shoveling driveways or cleaning yards or cleaning carpets or housekeeping, or you name it, I did it. And so I believe in hard work. I believe in bootstrapping and rolling your sleeves up, and no excuses, no explanations, just find a way to get it done. And that's the culture that we have here at Michigan State. It's a relentless mindset. It's high velocity, it's nonstop. It's no excuses, no explanations, sense of urgency, attention to detail, just find a way to get it done and find a way to get better, each and every day. And so, and our program is built upon that. Our program is built on hard work and roll your sleeves up and find a way to get the job done.
And to that measure, you talked about watching. I always tell people, I'm 54 years old now. I still don't listen to my mom, although I love her more than probably I should. I'm a mama's boy through and through, but I watched my mom. I watched my mom work 2 jobs as a single mom, raise 6 kids, all who went to the Ivy Leagues, all who attained scholarships, overachieved in every matter because they watched my mom. And most of my siblings didn't listen to her either. And I find the same thing with coaching. Lou Holtz told me a great saying. He said, David, it's not what I say, it's what they see and hear. And, through that, you were able to watch some extraordinary coaches. You played, at Wisconsin for a great coach. You watched Jim Tressel and coach with him. Nick Saban was one of your mentors as well. Watching those people beyond your parents, what lessons have you learned about being watched? Because as you've seen, there's a lot of coaches, that they may talk the talk, but it's the ones like Nick Saban that whether you're around or not, and you're watching him, he's living to what he's teaching.
Yeah, no doubt. All those guys you mentioned, Barry Alvarez, Jim Tressel, Nick Saban, Romeo Cornell, they were all great role models. You could see them every day getting the job done. Nick Saban would never ask you to do anything that he wasn't willing to do himself. He's always a guy that's leading the charge. He's in recruiting or team building or X's and O's, he's a hard guy to keep up with, because he's actually doing the work. And all of those coaches that you mentioned, with those types of guys, and you never know who's watching. You never know who's watching. You never know what type of impact that you're having on other people, what type of influence you have on other people, and as I get more experience and I get older, I'm to the point now where I'm running into guys that I coached, 20 years ago, and I'm recruiting some of their kids. It's and I'm just amazed at some of the stories that they tell me about myself. Like, do you remember, Coach, when you told me this, or I used to see you do this, or I used to see you do that, and I've been following your career all this time, and you just never know what type of impact you have on people, and you don't necessarily have to be in charge, to be a role model, to have influence. You can lead, 360 degrees wherever you're from. You can lead, and leadership is influence. And when people see someone doing things the right way, they see you working hard, they see you being resilient. That resonates with people, and because it's something that it makes too much sense, and you say we don't listen to our parents as much as we should, but we listen to them enough, because like being a single mom and putting 6 kids through Ivy League schools, you knew that she was doing something right. You knew that she was doing something right, and that's what it is. People know, they can see it, they can recognize and say, you know what, this person is doing something that I want to do, and that's the beauty of it, and it's a multiplier effect. You just don't know, who you're affecting, and then and how that's multiplying. So it's a good spot to be in, to be able to help people and influence people in a positive way.
And you're doing that in, like you said, recognition of success, from being the first coach ever at Michigan State to beat Michigan his first 2 seasons out, which I always enjoy because my 2 favorite teams in college are Ohio State and whoever is playing Michigan. So that made Michigan State my second favorite team. And even moreover, winning the Big Ten Coach of the Year in 2021. But the success of your players is your greatest success. And that's on and off the field. Obviously, very few coaches have as many successful players in the NFL, All-Americans and Pro Bowlers. But off the field, like you said, over the 2 decades, you're starting to see the impact, the social change. To that measure, I've been involved from representing the Clemente family to Warren Moon, the first African-American quarterback in the Hall of Fame, both U.S. and the Canadian Hall of Fame, and having to deal with what happened way back then when they put him up into Canada for 6 years with all the talent he had. Our mission, Warren and I, and Jackie Robinson, and working on the movie and in that efforts with Rachel. But it's really interesting, Warren and I were talking, that our mission for quarterbacks was that there wouldn't be any talk by today. Nobody would say, oh, he's a black quarterback. We just wanted him to be a tall quarterback, a strong quarterback, a dumb quarterback. But we didn't want the color of our skin to differentiate quarterbacks anymore. And we thought by far that coaching would take a shorter time, actually, with the Rooney Rule and other things, to not distinguish a quarterback by the color of their skin. And yet today it's still challenging. And you're a leader to create equity and inclusion of everyone, not just people of color, but out of everyone, for the character and for the performance and the content of that character. What, through the Big Ten Anti-Hate Coalition, the Anti-Racism Coalition, what are some of the challenges that you see with the longevity that you've had as a leader, a minority leader? What are some of the challenges of why we can't seem to get the traction that we have, in other places with coaches specifically?
Yeah, we could probably spend a couple of days talking about that, because it seems to be very complicated. It's very complicated. It's very nuanced, and it's very challenging, to say the least. My experience has been that as you can't hire yourself. Someone's got
I'm
it.
quoting
Someone's
you
got
on that one. That's a good one.
yeah, yes, they're so the decision makers, um, have to decide that they're going to hire a black coach,
Yeah.
and so the things that I've heard over the years is that um, you know they want to hire people that they're comfortable with, which we all want to do that.
Yeah.
We all want to hire people you feel good about. Um, and so what is that circle of influence, and how what an owner, a GM, an athletic director, board of trustees, alumni base, how do you get comfortable with a candidate, and who's recommending that candidate, and who's and what's the competition, and what is their circle of influence, and that's really what it comes down to, and I'm not sure that I have the answer uh, for that, because it is so complicated, and I don't know if you can't necessarily tell people who to hire, but obviously the Rooney Rule probably has not done what it was intended to do, um, ultimately, and so that's being revisited now. I know, how do we make that better, but I've always felt like, and this was before coaching. My parents taught me that you're going to have to be twice as good, at least. That's the type of pressure that I've always put on myself, is that you just can't be good. You just can't be good as you got to be twice as good. You got to be 3 times as good. There's no margin for error, and that's really what drives me,
And
and
I think that's part of the problem that I see from an outside perspective, is that
yeah,
there's a smaller margin of error, and most coaches lose, right? Most coaches have a losing season, most, and or don't meet the expectations. You wonder with Jim Harbaugh, who's a client of mine, and as a player, and now as a coach, you wonder how short of a window they would have given someone that may have been a minority. How quickly they would have changed their mind, with the failures that he had until this year, getting his ass whooped by Ohio State every time. But I had to throw that in there. Anyway, more importantly, uh, to that end, you're also, we deal with a lot of entrepreneurs will watch this, uh, recruitment. I think the most critical business issue that exists today in America is recruitment. And you are a master recruiter. And I would love for you to share some of your advice on how you're able not only to recruit, but to retain the talent that you have in a day and age where recruiting for business is almost as difficult as recruiting for college football. And more importantly, retaining employees is as hard as retaining college football players with NIL and all the transfer rules that never existed before. How are you dealing, and what advice do you have for these CEOs today, the head football coaches of the businesses? How are you recruiting people?
well, my dad was my first coach. He was he coached me in little league baseball, and um, I trusted my dad, you know, absolutely, 100%. He always kept it real with me. Um, we were connected. He cared about me, obviously, on the field, but off the field. Um, and he was very knowledgeable. He was a great teacher, um, and he always made me better. He always, and he never steered me wrong. He almost made me better. Always made me better. And so in recruiting, recruiting is about connection. It really is. I mean, and you have to first let the the recruits know that, hey, I see you as a person first and foremost, and at the end of the day, um, I want to see you succeed. Whether you come here or you go somewhere else, the bottom line is we want to take this football thing as far as we can take it. You're going to get a great education, hopefully have an opportunity to play in the National Football League. But beyond that, life after football is just an opportunity to leverage all the resources that we have and set yourself up for the rest of your life to be able to do whatever you want to do, beyond football. And that's the message. And then, that's the starting point. Now, from there, then it's everything else. It's facilities, it's weight room, it's nutrition, it's, academic support, it's resources and internships and all those things. But people have to know that you actually really do care, that you're in it for them, and that it's your responsibility to make them better, to help them reach their full potential every day. And I've always felt like you have to recruit your players every single day. The players that are on your team, and that's what leads to high levels of retention with guys that you really want to keep, that you really want to have. You have to recruit them. And recruiting them by always selling your program, always telling them how you can help them get better on and off the field. Being a great listener. Taking action. Making things happen. Doing what you say you're going to do, and being fair. And being straightforward. And I think people in recruiting, they respect when you shoot them straight, because there's a lot of misinformation out there, and the highly recruited guys, after a while, they get tired of that. And as the process goes on, it could be 2 years, it could be 3 years, it could be 8 months or whatever. After a while, people start to see, like who's real and who is not so real, who can I trust and who maybe I might not be able to trust with certain things. And when you're competing for players, and like you said, NIL now and the transfer portal, when you're competing, it's about comparison, and they're comparing you to the other people that are recruiting them, and they're going to make a decision who checks the most boxes. And at the end of the day, parents and high school coaches, who can I send my son to? Who's going to look out for him? Okay, and as the player, can I trust this coach? Can I trust this staff? And are they going to help me get to where I want to go? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, it was funny when I ran Lee Steinberg's, sports and entertainment, and dealing with the biggest names, and that recruitment and retention was obviously a huge issue. We had a great line: the truth vibrates the fastest, and your reputation and character for that truth, the overselling, back end selling, lying, manipulating, and cheating, becomes very apparent over the years of recruitment. And the truth actually stands out. It separates you. It may not be what you think they want to hear, but we'd rather people love us for who we are, than love us for who we're not. And last question, real quick. The other thing I think is remarkable about you, and I believe this in business as well, is you see Michigan State as your destination. You're there to build something. You're not there to exit your business, to take a huge profit, to move on. A lot of people, I think, make this mistake in business. They're not there to build something, to be a part of it, to participate into it, to create a legacy for themselves. And as you know, in the coaching field, when we were young, especially in Ohio and Michigan, right, there's a great legacy. The coaches were there to create a legacy. And we had Coach K leave, proving out what a legacy can do, how many lives you can change, not only by winning, but also just by being that type of person. And generationally, I don't see as many people like you that are taking jobs and, right up front saying, look, I'm very clear. I remember your first press conference, right? This is my home. This is my destination. This isn't a stepping stone to get to Ohio State, as much as my heart was crying when you said it, right? Michigan State is your place. How important is that you're there for the long run to build something, compared to people who kind of have an exit strategy?
Well, in order to get it done, at a high level in order to win championships, and to be in that conversation year in and year out, you have to be all in. I mean, the margins are just too slim, and it's just too competitive, because every single day you gotta be giving it everything that you have, and you have to be in the moment. You have to be present. You can't be looking around the corner, or looking beyond it. You gotta fight the fight, every single day. And I remember talking to Jim Tressel many years ago. I was at Ohio State with him at Ohio State in his first 4 years, and he told me that he was an assistant coach, and he was, when he had some head coaching opportunities, and Youngstown State was one of them. And someone told him, uh, make that a great job. Make Youngstown State a great job. And he did that. Jim Tressel goes to Youngstown State and wins 4 national championships. You know, you're from Ohio, right? I'm from Ohio. Youngstown. I know Youngstown. That's not necessarily a place that you would think a football coach would go and win 4 national championships, and he did it, and he made that place a dominant program at that level. And he went in there and did that, and he dug in. He was there for 15 years. He was there for 15 years, and so, I think it comes down to a decision. It comes down to a decision. I talked to one of our donors a little while back, and he's very, very successful. And I asked him, I said, when did you start rolling? When did you really know that you had it going? And he said it was about, he said it was about 2012. And I said, what happened? Was it a deal? Was it some type of connection? Was it something? He said, no, I just decided. I made a decision. I knew what I needed to do. I knew I had the information. I knew I had the skill, and I just made a decision that, okay, now we're going to do this big, and that's what it comes down to. And I've decided that we're going to do it here at Michigan State. That's just what it's going to be. And once you actually make a decision, then at that point, I think you can take off from there. And that's what we're doing here.
The relentless Mel Tucker, on and off the field, creating and empowering so many people, being a great leader as well. I really appreciate the time and helping people to enjoy the consistent, everyday, persistent, without quit pursuit of their own potential. We need to see more Mel Tucker and those like Mel Tucker in football and outside of football. Please join me anytime. Thank you so much. I wish you all the best of luck in your career, except for when you play one team, and we know what team that is, so I don't need to mention it. Congratulations on your great success. Take care, Mel.
Yeah, thanks for having me, David. Take care, buddy.